Good morning. And thank you. And we hope that our video will be back shortly. Welcome, welcome, welcome to this sacred place, this community consecrated by our presence and our commitment. I'm Vanessa Cowie, and I'm your worship associate this morning. Whether you're here in the church or joining us by the magic and sometimes glitchy magic of technology to attend service, we welcome you to the Unitarian Universalists of Transylvania County, where our mission is to support individual spiritual journeys and to promote social, economic, and environmental justice. And in the words of the Reverend David Breeden of the First Unitarian Society of Minneapolis, wherever you come from, however you got here, whatever you look like, whatever you believe, whether you have a bank account or not, however you are propelled around this building, you are welcome here. All are welcome as we strive to live in integrity and justice. The following announcements are to promote our health and safety in this pandemic time. Please use the clipboards to sign in. Please wear masks while in the building. Present company exempt only because I'm behind a pulpit. Please enjoy our music without singing, but please participate by humming, swaying, or clapping as you feel moved. And a few more brief announcements. First, if there's something on your heart that you wish to share this morning, please indicate so by motioning to the ushers, and they'll bring you a piece of paper, something to write with, so that item can be added to Reverend Bob's pastoral prayer. The UUTC Women's Group will hold its next meeting on December 1st at 1:30, not this Wednesday as reported. We need more volunteers to usher, especially during the busy holiday season and on choir Sundays. See Gypsy Richardson. And Reverend Bob's poetry and meditation class has begun, but there's still room. Contact him for an orientation or for details. And now we begin again with our introit, Handel's With the Voice of Joy and Thanksgiving.
Joy
We seem to have lost our video, but, so I want to tell you that music was, the words were performed by Janice Cannon and Elaine Shaver, and the music by Carlene Reagan. And if I have a voice of joy and thanksgiving after hearing that music, it is for real. For what shall we give thanks? The Reverend Laura Horton Ludwig asks and answers. For what shall we give thanks? The wheel of the year has turned again. Once more, the Thanksgiving season has arrived. How shall we sing the song of gratitude now? For what shall we give thanks? For this moment, for friends near and far, for our breath, for love, for courage and clarity, for strength, for delight, for laughter, for beauty, for the tables round which we gather or not, for the food we enjoy with friends, seasoned with love and memory, for the sun and moon and stars in the sky, for the trees who have seen so much and still stand proud, stretching themselves to the sky, for the bright voices of children, for the wisdom of elders, for actions that bless the world, for hard work that makes a difference, for music and art and celebration, for generosity, for compassion, for endurance, for joy, for hope. For all these things we give thanks as we worship together. We move more deeply into worship as we light our chalice, symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith. I'm going to light the chalice before the words today. Our words are from Katie Gelfand, Director of Religious Education at the First Unitarian Universalist Church of New Orleans. The abundance of our lives together. We light our chalice as a symbol of gratitude as we celebrate the abundance of our lives together. In this sanctuary, we harvest bushels of strength for one another and offer our crop with the hands of compassion and generosity. In the authentic and gentle manner of our connections, we cultivate a simple sweetness to brighten our spirits. May we be grateful for the ways we nourish and uplift each other, for it is the sharing of this hallowed time together that sustains us. Our first hymn today is number 349, We Gather Together.
Thanksgiving, acclaiming I have some wisdom to share with those who are of any age, something from Buddhist wisdom. Well, it was here. I just love how our technology is right at our fingertips, and then when it isn't, well, all right. So here we go. From the Buddha, our words of wisdom. Let us rise up and be thankful. For if we didn't learn a lot today, at least we learned a little. If we didn't learn a little, at least we didn't get sick. I don't think Buddha said it that way, but. And if we got sick, at least we didn't die. So let us all be thankful. I kind of feel like today, while we don't have video, at least we have the words. While we have words of wisdom, we don't have the children. But at least we're not dead. So the perspective of Thanksgiving that I'm bringing in the words of wisdom is we're here. We're able to share what we're able to share, whatever technology allows us. And honestly, let us be grateful for that. I don't know if the sound booth was going to be ready to have us hear the music and wave out the children, but we don't have children to wave out. So I would suggest we just skip ahead to what's next.
Thank you for being ready for the children. Sharing life passages, the merriment and the sorrow among our beloved friends. Joy can become a celebration and sorrow can receive a balm for easing the pain. We now pause to honor milestones and recognize those who need our healing thoughts. If you wish to share at this time, you may write down your joy or concern, and Reverend Bob will include it in his pastoral prayer that follows the cycle of life. If you are listening to this live online, I'm not sure if we are still live online, but and you won't be able to access the chat perhaps. But we will light a candle, nevertheless, for your joys and sorrows. We light the first candle to acknowledge that we live and worship on the traditional territories of the Cherokee and the Yuchi. For all who are grieving the death of a loved one, we light a candle to recognize the profound sorrow and for healing. The ongoing pandemic calls frontline workers to outsized sacrifice and risk, and once again we honor them with this candle. This Thursday is Thanksgiving, and as we give thanks for our abundance, we recognize that for some this is a time of scarcity or even crisis. We light a candle for those who may be helped by our social giving partner this month, The Haven, and for others who are anxious about meeting their basic needs. We light a candle for milestones shared online. And we light a final candle for all those joys and sorrows that are unvoiced but remain in our hearts. I invite you to hold these joys and sorrows in love while Carlene Reagan plays a musical reflection.
I invite you to continue in this prayerful moment with me. Take a deep breath as we lift up our prayers today. Spirit of love and life, we who are gathered here in person and online, reach out our hearts to those who are on the road already, traveling for their Thanksgiving holiday. May they have safe travels, healthy gatherings, and safe return. Our candles that were lit this morning for those who are grieving. In general, to know that we have now in Transylvania County had 50 deaths from COVID. In particular, within this congregation this morning, let us lift up our prayers for Sherry Miller's family upon the news of Sherry Miller's passing father's passing last week. We lift up prayers for those who are seeking to attempt new things, perhaps on a job search, perhaps trying something new in any area of life. In particular, this morning, we lift up prayers for safe driving for Luke Powers, who got his permit this week. We lift up the prayers held among those in the chat box online, held secretly within the hearts of those in this room or online, knowing that maybe our prayers need to go out to those who aren't yet ready, able to say what needs to be prayed about. For we are reminded, O Spirit of love and life, that our love makes a difference, and we are grateful for that. In the names of all those known and unknown, remembered and forgotten, in the names of all the helpers of humankind, we say, Amen. We have reestablished the pattern of passing the handmade baskets from within this congregation at this time, and part of our discipline to remember what it is to be giving people. For it is said that those of us who are grateful to have something and enough to give away of our time, talent, treasure, and preciously our trust, this exercises our hearts and brings us joy. Let us be grateful for all the gifts that will be given as we listen now to Carlene and the offertory.
For the beauty of the earth,
The reading that we have this morning is a responsive reading. Mel Harkrader, let me start that over. Mel Harkrader Pine, who had given permission to use with attribution this litany of gratitude. So I will read the lines of why some people come here, and then your response is, we thank them all. Pretty simple, but if you don't get it in the beginning, we repeat ourselves several times, so you'll finally get it. Some come here looking for solace. Some come here and give it to them. We thank them all. Some come here seeking music. Some come here and make it. We thank them all. Some come here seeking laughter. Some come here and create it. We thank them all. Some come here seeking learning and growth, and some come here and provide it. We thank them all. Some come here looking for a sense of security, a safe haven. Some come here and provide that. We thank them all. Some come here seeking an escape from hectic lives. Some come here and enable them to have it. We thank them all. Some come here seeking the joy of community. Some come here and create that. We thank them all. Some come here wanting to serve. Some come here and make it possible for them. We thank them all. Thank you for this opportunity to be preaching on this glorious sunny fall day. The sermon title this morning is Harvest, History, and Holding On. This is a time of gratitude and of history remembered. It's a hyphen in there. Remembered. Of harvest brought home. I don't know if any of you followed the blurb that was sent out or the instructions from the last couple of weeks. If you wished, it was completely voluntary to bring something, some baked good that you leave behind and someone else takes maybe a trade-off. And you know what? I'm grateful to you for being here, even if you never listen to the announcements, never open your emails. The fact that you are present is a gift, and I thank you. I'll start out with a quote from Goethe. Life without thankfulness is devoid of love and passion. No, that wasn't Goethe. I'll start out with John Henry Jowett. How's that? Life without thankfulness is devoid of love and passion. Hope without thankfulness is lacking in fine perception. Faith without thankfulness lacks strength and fortitude. Every virtue divorced from thankfulness is maimed and limps along the spiritual road. That's a bit severe, I think. It's a bit ableist in the way it's worded. For we all travel down the road in whatever ways we would. But I think in part, undergirding it all, we have something of the wisdom of that. We know that if we are not in a space of gratitude, there is something very wrong with the way we're going about our days. We can feel it, or we should. Or perhaps we meet up with people whose days are going in such a way that they are not grateful for anything at all, and they will make sure it spreads into your life, their attitude. one quote that I came across by someone I have no clue who it is, but it was attributed to William Ward. Said, God gave you a gift of 86,400 seconds today. Have you used one to say thank you? Imagine that. We had the quote from the Buddha during the Wisdom for All Ages, or at least a paraphrase kind of Bob interpretation of the Buddha. You know, we can be thankful for this. And, well, if we don't have that, at least we can be thankful for this. If we don't have that, at least we're thankful for our life. In my sabbatical years ago, when I went off for Buddhist meditation to learn something from a teacher in Vipassana Buddhism, I dealt with monkey mind, and every split second I tried to leave my mind to be open and blank, it would be filled by noise and the things I want to think about and everything that a good you always pays attention to, along with things that I probably didn't need to be cluttering my mind with. My teacher said, in part, yeah, let there be a chalice. All right. My teacher said in part, well, Bob, you might try counseling. Okay. But I think of it more in relation to that quote I just said. God gave you a gift of 86,400 seconds today. Have you used one to say thank you? It's not that Thanksgiving is supposed to be here every waking moment of our lives. It would be great if we could live in the spirit of gratitude all the time. But I think the reason why it's on the calendar, the reason why we come round to this theme once in a worship service of being grateful for the gifts that you bring, is because we just need a reminder now and then. And my Buddhist practice reminds me that even if it is for 1/10 of 1/1,000,000th of a second that I manage to keep my mind clear in Buddhist meditation, I have managed to use that tiny bit effectively. If I have to keep coming back to it, that's okay. Another quote that I came across is that gratitude is a vaccine, an antitoxin, and an antiseptic. So any little bit that we get, some homeopathic version of thankfulness seeping into us, may make a difference. Margaret Cousins put it this way: appreciation can make a day, even change a life. Your willingness to put it into words is all that's necessary. That's it. That's it. Now, when I say that it's a part of our history, part of remembering, I like that idea that we're putting a body or self back together by remembering. This last sermon of the month of holding history, I bring up some interesting ideas from our history. We have been given a myth of Thanksgiving. A myth of Thanksgiving that was spread out there hundreds of years ago to help us at some point in our history, in our idea of a collective identity of a nation. Depending on which state you may have grown up with in the United States, you were told the first Thanksgiving was in that state. Nationally, however, we seem to have absconded with the myth that has grown up around the landing of the Mayflower. Not that there weren't people before the Mayflower who were grateful. Not that the story was right. And somebody asked, well, what would have happened if the twin ship had traveled with it as planned? What would we have had if it was a different group? And they actually made it to where they were aiming. They were so grateful to get to rocky, awful New England. Why New England? All those quaint stone walls as evidence of the plow hitting rock after rock being picked up from the ground and put on the stone wall. Why, with the climate there, why couldn't they have found their way correctly and gotten to Virginia? Or at least New Jersey? Why New England? And then if you go there as a tourist and you go to see Plymouth Rock, and you think, oh, this is where they got off the boat and they stood on this rock. Well, wasn't the rock put there 100 years later by colonialists wanting to remember the event? Okay, folks, so we're developing a myth around people who were lost, or at least not all who wander are lost, but we didn't go where we were planning. Something was wrong. And they landed on this rock, except they didn't. And then we had this big feast, and everybody had pumpkin pie and everything. But they didn't. It's interesting, from Parabola magazine, one of those great resources ministers or those who are thoughtful may have, hey, Christmas idea, Parabola. Way back in winter 2007, there was an article on page 26 through 28 on the old and the new by Judo Krishnamurti. Now, 100 years ago, that's not the kind of name that Unitarians were quoting. But here we go. Here's a good question to go along with these ideas of what we're bringing from the past. What's actually taking place in our lives? There's a constant challenge and response. Challenge is always new, and the response is always old. We get that in society. We have a lot of people reacting against the new. All right, back to the quote. I met you yesterday, and you come to me today. You are different. You are modified. You have changed. You are new, but I have a picture of you as you were yesterday. Therefore, I absorb the new into that old. I do not meet you anew, but I have yesterday's picture of you, so my response to the challenge, the newness, is always conditioned. Absorb the new into what I already know. Here, for the moment, you cease to be a Brahmin, a Christian, high caste, or whatever it is. You forget everything. You are just listening, absorbed, trying to find out. When you resume your daily life, you become your old self. Well, I won't keep reading on this, but the idea that I hear in that is when we come to any point in time in which we're being taught history and we have something new creeping in, wait, that's not the way it happened. Our teachers didn't tell us the right way. They taught us the mythical way. And so we rebuild, knowing ourselves and our identity as a nation, every Thanksgiving that more information is added unless somebody votes on not letting it into a textbook. It's the other way. We don't just have to absorb the new into the old. We can just say, and ignore it. Don't like it. Bothers us. We take a day at a time, incorporating our knowledge of ourself and what we can do based on what we used to be able to do. Perhaps we're working out, and it's great. In my case, I was told this week that at the end of the month I will graduate from cardio rehab because I've met all the targets, and besides, they need more room to get somebody in who could really get something out of cardio rehab. I'm done. This is good news. But sometimes we're faced and remembering ourselves with a memory of who we were and, wait, but I'm not able to accomplish as much as I used to. But I'm not married anymore. But I'm not whatever was. I saw in the news of people who are just getting notice that their whole company is shutting down, every employee being released. It's a nonprofit. Nonprofits are failing greatly. These are people who found their sense of self in what they did, in making a difference, in transforming the world in some way. Perhaps they're grateful that it doesn't officially kick in until January 1st. Yay. But I know, as a person who has lost a position now and then, what it feels like. Who are you? This is especially true for those who were raised in toxic masculinity. Who are you? Well, I am, show my business card. This is who I am. But I have just lost that. Who am I if I can't pull out? Well, I used to be somebody. That doesn't work either. Remembering Thanksgiving is finding the ways in which, well, it's a beautiful day. And even if it isn't a beautiful day, at least we have our health. Well, if we don't have our health, at least we're alive. It's remembering that sense of gratitude, that 86,400 seconds, sometime finding something to be grateful for as that homeopathic antidote to the toxic stuff that we are deeply feeling, so that we might not spill it over into our world. This year we have vaccines. We can be in the room. I'm grateful for that. This year we have some of the lowest, Thanksgiving, some of the lowest number of cases in Transylvania County and in North Carolina of COVID-19. I was so hopeful, and those of you sitting in the room who are on the worship team know this, that we were not only going to optionally ask you to bring a baked good that maybe you would remember to bring and then hand out, but that we would actually have a bread communion together. I'm going to give you a preview of what that might have included. There's a reading here from Carrie Holm, that once the guest has eaten and drunk at your table, the guest becomes kin, beggar or enemy, friend or chief. If they knock at your door, it will open. If they seek your shelter, it will be given. And if they ask for hospitality, give them your bread and wine, for who knows when you may need the help of a fellow human. Of all the messages of a rewritten Thanksgiving, of how we hold history and how we hold myth and how we redo everything, I think that comes to it. We will give them your bread and wine or grape juice. And for who knows, when you may need the help of a fellow human. One of my colleagues, whose wise words I run across occasionally, the 2020 volume of the In Spirit series, which is a meditation manual, was by the Reverend Sean Parker Dennison. It's called Breaking and Blessing, that volume. Another Christmas idea. Ooh, grab one of the UU meditation manuals. But Sean Parker Dennison says this, and this is a caveat to what was just said. I will break bread only with those who know that breaking and blessing are one thing. Breaking and blessing. Who worship the breaking open and the broken down. Who refuse to be given away, but give themselves over to the blessing of being embodied and sacred and free. This is one of those spaces, I believe, with those who know. As I look here and think of you online, and Sean Parker Dennison saying, I will break bread only with those who know that breaking and blessing are one thing. This congregation knows this. If you are a visitor, potential visitor, seeker, this is one of those places where we understand it's not just here's a hunk of bread. But the very act of being broken open, broken down, and then deciding to give ourselves over to the blessing of being, that for me is this Unitarian Universalist congregation. People who come again and again to be remembered into being. For those who may have seen them yesterday and they still had a business card and today they don't. But we still know you. You are real. To those who are troubled, struggling with issues of identity, who are of any ways of life, who know that there are other spaces in which you are not with people who understand that breaking is blessing. Here we are in this lovely, wonderful congregation, and I say thank you. Are you grateful? Would you like at this moment to glance around to the others around you or think of those who you love and just say, thank you. It's so much easier to say this closing quote. In a year that is not a national election, how would it be if just for today we thought less about contests and rivalries, profits and politics, winners and sinners, and more about helping and giving, mending and blending, reaching out and pitching in? How would it be? Imagine this was your bread communion moment, and you eat a shared piece of perhaps gluten-free, vegan, baked goods at this moment, and stared in each other's faces and know that you are known, and be grateful for this place. Blessings on all of you. The closing hymn, try another piece of technology to tell me this answer. closing hymn is I Walk the Unfrequented Road. And again, we are grateful to Janice and Elaine and Carlene. And are we going to get video this time? Who knows? And yet we are grateful for what we get.
I walk the unfrequented road with open eye and ear. I watch afield the farmer load the bounty of the year. I feel the fruit of no one's toil, no trespasser amore. And yet I reap from every soil and from a boundless earth. I gather where I did not sow, and bind a mystic sheep. The emerald rivers flow, the rustle of the leaf. A beauty springtime never knew haunts all the quiet ways, and sweeter shines the landscape through its veil of autumn haze. I face the hills of streams of wood and feel with all akin. My heart expands their fortitude, and peace and joy flow in.
As I extinguish the chalice, I speak words from the Reverend Kate Seitz Bortner, my colleague in York, Pennsylvania, who had written this Thanksgiving blessing years ago. As we have been gathered here once again to affirm beloved community, understanding ourselves coming from different houses and by many different paths, we have consecrated time together. We have gathered in gratitude for all that we have. And in so doing, we hold together a sort of promise to one another and to our world, not unlike the covenant we covenant to walk together in the ways of God, truth, and compassion, as we know them now or may know them in the future, so that we and our children might be fulfilled and the world will come to know us by the words and deeds of peace and goodwill. And again, in the closing words of Bob Doss, now to all those who see God, may God be with you. To all those who embrace life, may life return your affection. For all those who seek a right path, may a way be found, and the courage to take it step by step. Until next week, go in peace, make peace, be peace. Amen.